to start the recording now. Okay, great. So welcome to Wednesday, February 2nd, 6:44 p.m. To our February co-direct, where we go over organizational updates, share questions, share challenges, to receive questions and feedback in return. And this is one of our avenues of co-creation with our members, with the general public. We have quite a few topics tonight. I've just posted them in a chat. Won't necessarily go in that order. I think what I would like to do, just because I don't know what your time is like tonight, Sam, but I would like to just start with an update on Ujima's flagship issue, which is bringing a public bank to Massachusetts. So Sam, can I give you the floor and ask you to provide a quick overview, and then just the latest and where are we now?
Great, yeah, thank you, Nia. For some of you this may be redundant, so I'll just do a very quick overview of what public banking is, and then we'll go into some of the really cool updates from this week. So my name is Sam Gebru. I'm a consultant, and I'm working with the Massachusetts Public Banking Coalition, which the Boston Ujima Project is an integral member of and a leader on the steering committee. The public bank legislation this time around was introduced early last year in the Massachusetts legislature. The bill numbers, for those of you who care to look it up, it's Senate Bill 665 and House Bill 1223. And this bill would essentially establish the nation's second state-owned public bank after the Bank of North Dakota, which is a little over 100 years old. And this would be a bank that is administered by the Commonwealth. There would only be one depositor. It's the Commonwealth. It's not a bank where you and I would do banking at, but the bank would have a statutory obligation to invest in municipalities, particularly gateway cities, women and minority-owned businesses, local industries, including agriculture, the green economy, including climate infrastructure and coastal communities, and other industries that are overlooked by traditional banking. We see this as a really innovative model when we think about an equitable recovery for all, particularly those who are most impacted by the ongoing pandemic and the economic crisis. We want to make sure that we are able to invest properly in these communities. Within entrepreneurs of color alone, the Boston Foundation's Boston Indicators team last year, along with the Coalition for an Equitable Economy, put out a report that identified roughly $574 million every year is left on the table that entrepreneurs of color are not receiving in Massachusetts annually. And that $500 million racial capital access gap is attributed to many reasons, and chief among them is redlining and the historical segregation and the ongoing segregation that we still see in commercial banking. And so this public bank bill would seek to rectify a lot of these issues by introducing a state-owned bank that would help fill the gaps across the Commonwealth. Public banking is not new to the United States. It was pretty common in the founding of the Republic, but since has given way to commercial banking. And now there are efforts across the country. 2 years ago, the state of California passed legislation allowing counties and municipalities to open their own public banks. The governor of New Jersey is pursuing the formation of a commission to study the establishment of a public bank in New Jersey, and then other states, including New Mexico, Pennsylvania, Washington, New York, are all looking into public banking as well. And then at the national level, there are bills in the House to establish a public bank, and then in the Senate to establish a national climate bank. And so there are a lot of different movements going on. And then internationally, public banking is integral for many countries across the world. So we introduced the bill in the beginning of the session early last year in January. The Senate sponsor is Jamie Eldridge. The House sponsors are Nika Lugardo and Mike Connolly. And since then, we've worked very hard to secure a number of co-sponsors in both the House and the Senate. We've worked very hard to introduce this concept to a number of other lawmakers, to decision makers at local and state and federal levels. We've enlisted the support of the state treasurer, Deb Goldberg, who would actually be the person responsible for making the initial deposit to the public bank. And we also enlisted the support of the Metropolitan Mayors Coalition, the Metro Mayors Coalition, which represents the 15 cities and towns in the greater Boston area. And so we're really thrilled about that. And we've continuously been growing this public banking coalition over last year. And we're really excited about the work that's ahead of us. Today is a major deadline in the legislative process. It's Joint Rule 10 day. It's when you think about the House and the Senate, at the beginning of every session, they determine what their joint rules are. Joint Rule number 10 is that the legislative committees, so in this case, the Joint Committee on Financial Services, have until February 2nd, 2022, to determine the status of the bills in their committee. And so there are 4 possible scenarios that any committee could make a determination on with regards to its bill. The best case scenario is a favorable report. A favorable report means thumbs up, we like your bill, it's going to move on in the legislative, what I like to call the sort of legislative sausage making process. The second best outcome is an extension order. An extension order is, you know what, we kind of like your bill, we're not ready to say yes, we're not ready to say no, and we want more time to deliberate. The third possible outcome is a study order, which is a nice way of saying no. I call it death by 1,000 cuts. Basically, it's, we don't want to say no, we're definitely not saying yes, and we're going to throw this in the parking lot of ideas, and we'll talk to you in a year from now. So there's that. And then the fourth possible outcome is an outright negative report, and that is a flat out no, we'll see you next year, and maybe never. So we were really pushing, obviously, for a favorable report. We understand the concept of public banking is new to many people, and there are a lot of questions, understandably, but we were pushing for a favorable report because if any time, this is the moment to really be innovative and creative and bold with our equitable recovery. And we're pleased to share that we received an extension order, which is the next best thing. And we're very grateful to the Joint Committee on Financial Services, to the chairs, James Murphy in the House and Brendan Creighton in the Senate, for really taking a serious look at this bill and hearing us out, and their commitment to continuing to hear us out. And so we have until April 30th. That's our new deadline, to be able to work with the members of the Joint Committee on Financial Services and work with leadership in the House and the Senate to make sure that they fully understand what public banking is and how it can transform our communities and our economies across the state. And then from there, hopefully we're given a favorable report, and then we can continue in the legislative process. It's important to mention, and true to the mission and the values of Ujima, the public bank would have a very different governance structure than a typical bank. This bank would not be accountable to private shareholders. It's accountable to the Commonwealth, to the people, to you and me. And so it would have a board of directors and a board of advisors who would be appointed by our state officials. And these boards would be reflective of the diversity and the expertise of the people in the Commonwealth. And then it would also have significantly different underwriting practices. This is a bank that would be as prudent as any other commercial bank or community development financial institution when it comes to managing risk. But this is also a bank that would be charged with supporting and investing in communities that get overlooked by traditional banks. And it would do this by partnering with existing commercial lenders. And so the public bank is not going to be a massive bureaucracy. It's going to really funnel its money through these existing commercial lenders and give them the capacity that they need to be able to finally give loans to people that they've, to businesses and to communities that they've continued to overlook. So we're excited. This is going to be a game changer. We're really glad about this process, and the way that you can be most helpful is reach out to your legislator. If you don't know who your legislator is, you can just visit malegislature.gov and you can do a zip code search to determine who your state senator and state representatives are. And from there, reach out to them. Ask them, are you familiar with public banking? Are you familiar with the bills that the Public Banking Coalition have put forward? And would you be willing to co-sponsor? Would you be willing to formally say that you support the bill and communicate your support to the chairs of the Joint Committee on Financial Services? That's enormous. And if we can get everybody on this call and all of your friends and your colleagues to do that, that will signal additional grassroots support that we need to get this across the committee and then hopefully to the floors of the Senate and the House for passage.
Thank you very much, Sam. Just a couple of things I'd like to add to that really quickly. Just some quick Ujima history. Public Bank is part of our origin story. Those of us who came early to form Ujima and to think about what economic democracy could look like in Boston, the group was forming around what it would take to start a public bank. So we're really happy to have to be working with the Massachusetts Public Banking Coalition that's been working on this for quite some time, working with Sam, who has done quite a bit to provide extra momentum and lift the profile of the issue, and additional just organizational peers and partners with us on this. What we will do on our end, so there are a couple other things that we will do to involve those of you who are interested in contributing to the process. So Sam and I, as well as some of our other coalition members, are going to be planning a monthly meeting with the goal of bringing in more of our peers and partners and activating our peers and partners. And so if you're interested in joining that, please let us know. So what we'll do when we send out the recap next week, we'll send out a link where you can just let us know. You can sign up and just let us know that you want to know more about this effort, and that you want to be more actively involved in the effort. And so that'll include your attendance at these monthly meetings, if you're able to do that, as Sam has said, calling your legislators, and just really just staying up to date on action items just to help move the ball. The final thing that I'll say is another group of people that we're going to be focusing on communicating with are bankers. And so we have had some Ujima members reach out and volunteer to connect with that stakeholder group on behalf of the effort. And so that's just one of the ways that I can preview that as a Ujima member, you can be helpful to the effort, just thinking about your networks, thinking about who you know who may have some type of stake in this effort, and who you can reach out to and talk to them about it. So be on the lookout for that link from us. And in that link, we'll also include information about how you can contact your legislator that Sam talked about tonight to contribute to the effort. And so also celebrate with us. So we're very happy, as Sam said, about this outcome, and really looking forward to really just making more progress before April 30th. Thank you, Sam. Next, I'd like to talk about our cousins, Timebank. So I think many of you know Ujima has a Timebank. We have a member team, Timebank member team that works on outreach to the Timebank. Sierra has just posted the link in the chat there. And we just want to talk about a little bit of a pivot that we think that we're going to do with the team. So one of the things that the Timebank has been trying to work on is just kind of monitoring the exchanges that happens on the Timebank. So what we've been experiencing is people really excited about the idea of the Timebank. People sign up for a Timebank. I don't know how many hundreds of members we have on the Timebank now. And from what I understand, a fair amount of exchanges occur. But my understanding is we would like to see more exchanges, and we would like to see more community members see a Timebank as a resource. So, just kind of speaking of this notion of what is money. And one of the reasons a Timebank is important to Ujima, and it's one of the pillars of our ecosystem, is because we do want people to essentially be able to have a non-monetary avenue to be able to access the resources and the materials and that they need, and to meet their needs, and to not be, to not having enough money, for example, be a barrier to meeting needs. The other thing is, I think we also see it as a way to really kind of more properly value the gifts and the skills and the assets that we have in our communities. So when I think about BIPOC communities, when I think about Black communities, we're chock full of riches, chock full of assets, chock full of skills, chock full of talents that are not properly valued. So we see different ways that shows up. Our unemployment rates are always higher, no matter what's going on. So no matter whether or not we're in recession or not, or we're in depression or not, we are always going to have higher unemployment rates. And you can kind of look at employment as a way that a person's skill is valued and kind of be remunerated for. So then if you think about the fact that we have disproportionate unemployment rates, it's almost a way of saying that the skills and the talent and that the assets that we offer to the world does not return value. And our Timebank for us is one of the ways that we mitigate that, and that becomes mitigated by our relationships with each other. And so this is one of the reasons. These are a couple of reasons time banking is so important to us. So in that regard, we thought we'd just do a little bit of a pivot with the member team and not have it just be an internal looking group. So we're thinking we would like to have it be more of a meetup space where we would want to connect with other time banks in the area, particularly BIPOC time banks. Again, just really wanting to do the work of having our fellow community members see how time banking can be a resource. I know that we had some people, for example, asking about our time bank in 2020 when we first entered the pandemic, when we first shut down, because I think it became immediately apparent to quite a few people how a thriving time bank could be an additional resource in addition to all of the other mutual aid and the federal aid and the local and the state aid that was being meted out at the time. So Sierra's dropping some stuff in the chat. She said Time Bank meets every second Wednesday if you all are interested in joining. So that's next Wednesday will be the next Time Bank meeting. And then she just also just quick definition. She said Time Bank members share skills and provide services for each other. And there are over 400 plus Time Bank members in the Ujima Time Bank. So this is just really just letting you all know we're just we're adjusting the space a bit, again, just for it to be more of a meetup space. We're going to be reaching out to different time banks that we know in different cities and in different areas and inviting them to come and just build and just kind of think about how we, just really share what a valuable resource time banking can be in our communities. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that, Sierra. Okay, cool. I'll pause, and I realized I didn't pause after Sam's update, so I'll just pause to get any kind of questions or feedback on both what was shared about public banking and also just what we shared about the time bank.
Yeah, it's Joyce. Can I ask a question about the banking that Sam just talked about? Will Ujima automatically have a seat on that board?
Not automatically. But as helping to draft the legislation and actually helping to contribute to that section of the legislation and really just kind of making sure that fair and diverse representation was seen to on the board. It would be reasonable, I think, for us to expect to continue to be in the conversation about what the process is for making those appointments and for letting people know that there is an opportunity to serve on the board. But no, there will not be an automatic seat for Ujima.
Will there be because you know how when people hear about sitting on boards, it's either you have to have a certain amount of money, you have to have a certain education level or, profession. So I assume that that's also going to be monitored then, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's a great question, Joyce. And correct me if I'm wrong, Stan, but I even think we talked about, for example, the advisory board with exactly what you've talked about in mind. I feel like we've talked about that being a stipended activity if necessary, and that was actually one of the things that we lifted, which to your point, which is exactly what you've raised, Joyce, that for example, if it's not stipended, then it kind of creates an advantage for professional class and for people who can kind of afford to do that extra work without being stipended, or people whose lifestyles allow them that time even to do that work. So that was something that we definitely thought of. And so what we built into there was, if necessary, if required, that it could be stipend. And we were also pretty clear to kind of see to class diversity. So to say, for example, there needs to be someone on the board who either is at an org that represents workers, for example, or someone who can represent workers themselves, a small business owner, so someone who can represent small businesses, et cetera.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Congratulations,
by the way.
Typing you, Joyce.
Thank you. Thank you, Joyce, for your questions. I would just add, I agree with everything that Nia said. I would just add that what I've typically seen in my experience with bills that seek to create committees or panels or boards or commissions or whatever body there may be, it's sort of I would say it's a practice generally that the groups that were involved in writing the bill or advocating for the bill typically get to sort of help steer and influence the decision making around who gets to sit on the board. And so in this case, it would be working with the governor and with the treasurer to make these appointments. And typically what happens, I've seen in practice, is that staff from those offices would reach out and say, hey, like, who do you recommend? And who do you think can fill these different areas? And just in my own experience, I've been able to place people on boards and commissions that way too, by people coming to me and saying, hey, we are obligated by this law to now create this committee. Who do you think should be on it? And, I would forward a name or two or whatever. The people that I would recommend would end up getting appointed. So I think, we could definitely reasonably assume, while the bill does not spell out, these 10 organizations are going to have seats on the board, just the amount of time and effort that we've invested in this. And just from my experience, Nia is totally correct on this.
Thank you, Sam. And then some of these I'll just blitz through really quickly. I mean, for you all, I've talked about it already a little earlier tonight, but just for the sake of those who may be accessing the notes or the video, just a quick reminder that our Dorchester Food Cooperative investment vote is still open. It closes Friday. Yeah, so just if you're a Ujima voting member, if you haven't voted yet, just make sure you get your vote in. We have reached quorum, so we are excited about that, but we do just want to leave it open again, just to make sure, yeah, Joyce, anyone who didn't have a chance to vote has a chance to do so. And Sierra has just dropped the ballot in the chat, but it says phone bank. Sierra, is that the right ballot?
It is not. Give me 1 second and I'll drop the correct link into the chat.
All right, Sierra's dropping the right link into the chat. The other thing, I mentioned this already, just real quickly, workshops for February. February is Money Month at Ujima. So the theme of our political and financial education workshops will be money. We're starting off with If You Know, You Know Wednesdays, which is the next update. So we've been talking about this for a little while, that in February, which is this month, we are launching BIPOC only political and financial education workshops every second Wednesday of the month. And so that's starting next Wednesday. And we're calling that If You Know, You Know Wednesdays. So that'll be our first money conversation. It'll be an extension of our money edition with myself, Sierra, our communications director, Ariel Gray, who's with GBH, and Giovanna. What's Giovanna's last name, Sierra?
Giovanna Jones, currently a PhD candidate at Harvard. Yeah, Harvard University.
Okay, excellent. And I think, and it'll be a conversation that'll just kind of pick up where the money edition left off. So I was looking at sitcoms, I was looking at Black sitcoms and what Black sitcoms tell us about money. We'll also be looking at alternative currency, and we'll also be looking at cryptocurrency. Then the following week, we'll hear from Keisu Park, who will be talking about debt. And then we'll round out the series with Christine Desan, who will be going over what is money and just talking about just exactly how money works. And then just real quick, on the If You Know, You Know Wednesdays. So as I said, these are the BIPOC only political and financial education workshops. We also, because they are BIPOC only, and we do want to ensure that they are reasonably safe spaces, we won't be recording those workshops, but we will just try to ask participants if they can provide some reflections that they wouldn't mind being shared with the rest of the membership. I'll pause. Any questions, feedback on the workshops and on If You Know, You Know? Okay, great. The next thing I want to talk about really quickly is something that we are going to also be starting in February, that we're going to be calling Februaryteenth. And I see Joy smiling, so that's good feedback. So yes, this is a bit of a nod to Juneteenth. So it's a special kind of Ujima nod to Juneteenth. So there are a couple of things here. One of the things we're working on is refining our voting processes, and part of that includes something we've talked about before, which is our voter affirmation process, which is just getting a clearer sense of people's voting preferences, so that, what I would say is, one of the premises of Ujima with regards to kind of democratic participation is really, I would say, making sure that we're not kind of robbed of opportunities to shape our communities. And I think an important nuance part of that is not to kind of present the option to participate as an all or nothing proposition. And so this is what we're doing with our voter affirmation process, which is we want people to enjoy increased participation in our communities, increased power, increased decision-making power. And we don't think that there should be a burden or there should be this kind of obligation to participate in every single decision. So we understand that there are different reasons why, for example, we just had our cultural assembly, why I may or may not want to actually vote on who gets an arts grant from Ujima. And I should be able to kind of exercise that preference. And so we're just trying to arrive at just more refined processes that allow people to exercise more choice within more democratic participation. So that's one of the refinements that we've been working on. The other one is also just, as we're able to do that, getting at more regularity and more consistency and more predictability when it comes to the voting. And so we have started to think about what it looks like to have a voting schedule. And so this is where Februaryteenth comes in. So for us, Februaryteenth is going to be the time of the year when Ujima voting members are going to be able to possibly ratify an additional investment plan. And just a quick kind of overview, The way we arrive at our investment plans is previously in the past, at our assemblies, we would ask Ujima members and community members to name businesses that you love, name businesses you think we need in our communities that we don't currently have, name businesses you'd like to replace. And that's generally what has just been kind of a first pass. Just you can name a business, and all the businesses that are named go on a list, no questions asked, no extra kind of modification or mediation from us. We then take those compiled lists, presented to Ujima community members, or Ujima voting members, I'm sorry, and Ujima voting members vote on those lists. So they vote to then actually ratify those lists as a formal investment plan. Through that process, we have 3 plans. We have a Roxbury investment plan, we have a Mattapan investment plan, we have a Dorchester investment plan. One of the opportunities we have tried to provide is an opportunity for Ujima members and community members to name businesses outside of the assembly process. Again, just trying to take into account people's diverse lives. There are many different reasons why you may not have been able to join us when we held an in-person assembly, or even when we held an assembly at a certain point in time virtually. And so what we've done now is we've created a process for people to be able to name businesses at any time over the course of the year. When you sign up for your Ujima membership, you get a kick-out email, and one of the first things it lets you know that you can do, if you're a voting member, it lets you know that you can name businesses. You can fill out a form, and you can name, I'm going to say, up to 13 businesses, something like that. And Sierra has just dropped it in the chat. And members can do this once a year. So this is an annual process that members can participate. And this ensures that we're continually learning about businesses. And as things change, as we see, the pandemic has, unfortunately, we've seen businesses close down during the pandemic. We've also seen new businesses start. So we just want to make sure we're always kind of abreast of what's happening in people's lives and the different businesses that people value. So every February now, what we'd like to do is we'd like to take the compilation of those businesses that come in through that personalized investment plan and present it for a new list or a new plan. And so that's what we're calling Februaryteenth. And so far, it's a celebration of self-determination. It's a celebration of participation. It's a celebration of increased decision-making power. And again, it just helps to kind of provide that regularity. And so we want to set it up now so that Ujima members know, okay, come February, Ujima is going to be sending us a list that we're going to be voting on. And we're going to be voting on whether or not we ratify it as a new investment plan. And there is a list that is up for ratification now. And Sierra, why don't you go ahead and drop that in the chat? And we'll communicate a little bit more about that soon. On top of that, the Februaryteenth is also, again, just a way to make things fun. The last thing, because we're a little bit over time, that I'll talk about in these updates. And as I mentioned already, one of the things that we're trying to, one of the refinements that we're trying to make is just a little bit more regularity with our voting, is we're working on an assembly and voting schedule. And so what we have decided is we are now going to do assemblies twice a year in April and October. So as you're kind of organizing your lives and getting your calendars together, you can now mark every April and every October as assembly time for Ujima. So you can be expected to hear, I would say kind of heightened communication around whatever the assembly topic is. There may be some voting that's happening during that time. So just, be good to kind of prep yourself. Okay, I may be getting calls and emails from Ujima about some type of vote that's in process. And then besides that assembly schedule, so again, every April, every October, we're also working on a more regular voting schedule. That's a little bit harder because with our investment votes, we don't necessarily know when we'll be at the point in a process where we're ready to take a vote. But again, it's something that we're aiming towards, so we'll keep you updated. And I will just pause here for any kind of quick feedback questions of what I've just said, because we are 3 minutes over time and see people coming in for the arts and cultural organizing team. So just want to make sure I respect their time. Okay. All right. So with that, I think we can end this evening's co-direct. Feel free to shoot us any updates, or I'm sorry, not updates, but feel free to shoot us any questions or any feedback about anything that you've heard tonight. So you can either email us at info@ujimaboston.com or comms@ujimaboston.com. If you're still kind of processing what we've talked about tonight, is swirling around, and you still have some questions that you'd like to ask or some feedback, please feel free to contact us via email. And then once again, I'll just remind you all, also feel free to email us if you're pretty sure right now. I saw some people taking notes. You want to be regularly kept abreast of what's happening with our public banking effort, and you'd like to be an active part of the effort. And I'm going to turn off the recording. I don't know if I see what you put in the chat, Joyce. I don't know if you want this to be recorded or not.
I just remembered that I owed you those 2 addresses. And so I meant to just send it to you. So my apologies, but anyone is welcome to look at it, of course. But I just want you to know I put those in there for you.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Okay, so with that, let me pause the recording. I'm looking for it. How do I do that? Here we go.